The world held its breath as a precarious ceasefire between Israel and Iran took effect on Tuesday, June 24, 2025, bringing a tentative end to 12 days of intense and destructive conflict. The truce, brokered through the tireless diplomatic efforts of Qatar and the direct intervention of US President Donald Trump, arrived not with a quiet sigh of relief, but with the deafening roar of last-minute attacks. This sudden escalation served as a grim reminder of how volatile the situation remains. For nearly 2 weeks, the region had been gripped by a cycle of aerial assaults and missile strikes, with each nation demonstrating its military capabilities in a terrifying display of force that pushed the Middle East to the brink of a much wider war. The fragility of the peace was immediately put to the test. In the final moments leading up to the ceasefire deadline, the skies over Tehran were once again lit up by Israeli air assaults targeting the capital and missile launch sites. It was a clear message of deterrence, a final show of strength before the guns were supposed to fall silent. In response, Iran fired its own parting salvo, a barrage of missiles aimed at Israel. One of these projectiles tragically found its mark, striking a residential building in the southern city of Beersheba and killing 4 people who had sought safety in a bomb shelter, a devastating endnote to the bloodshed. These final, violent exchanges underscored the deep-seated animosity and mistrust fueling the conflict. This conflict, which erupted on June 13th, saw both nations claim successes while inflicting significant pain upon the other. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hailed the military campaign as a historic victory, asserting that his forces had brought Iran's nuclear ambitions to ruins and warning that Israel would not hesitate to act again if threatened. Across the border, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian also declared victory, praising his country's resilience and vowing to uphold the truce as long as Israel did the same. These competing narratives of triumph did little to mask the human cost or the precariousness of the newly brokered peace, leaving civilians on both sides to hope that the halt in fighting would hold. The agreement itself is straightforward yet delicate. Both sides have publicly committed to ceasing hostilities as long as the other party abides by the terms. In a sign of cautious optimism, Israeli authorities began lifting emergency restrictions that had been placed on public gatherings, allowing a semblance of normal life to return. However, the deep scars left by the past 12 days, combined with the unresolved core issues that ignited the violence in the first place, mean that this ceasefire is built on a foundation of sand. The international community is watching closely, aware that a single miscalculation or provocation could shatter the truce and plunge the region back into chaos. President Donald Trump's role in brokering the truce was anything but conventional, marked by his signature blend of high-stakes diplomacy and public, unfiltered commentary. Having invested significant political capital in announcing the deal, his reaction was explosive when reports emerged of Israel's last-minute strikes on Tehran. In a moment of raw frustration before reporters, Trump used unusually strong language and swore, making his anger clear. He took to social media, posting a direct and public command: "Israel, do not drop those bombs. If you do, it's a major violation. Bring your pilots home now." This unprecedented public rebuke of a key ally was followed by what sources described as an exceptionally firm and direct phone call with Prime Minister Netanyahu demanding adherence to the deal. This dramatic diplomatic intervention came just days after a significant American military action. On Saturday, June 21st, the United States unleashed its most powerful conventional weapons on Iran's nuclear infrastructure. US B-2 stealth bombers flew a long-range mission to drop 14 GBU-57 bunker-buster bombs on key nuclear sites at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. Each of these massive 30,000-pound munitions is designed to penetrate deeply into the earth before detonating, with the express purpose of destroying hardened underground facilities. The White House presented the strikes as a decisive blow that had crippled Iran's atomic program, a claim intended to justify the aggressive unilateral action. However, the official narrative of total obliteration was quickly challenged. A classified preliminary assessment from the Defense Intelligence Agency, or DIA, was leaked to the media, painting a far less successful picture. The report concluded that the strikes had only set back Iran's program by a matter of months, perhaps less than 6. According to the DIA, while the entrances to some underground facilities were sealed, the core structures were not collapsed, leaving most of Iran's advanced centrifuges intact. The assessment also suggested that Iran had likely anticipated the attack and moved a significant portion of its enriched uranium stockpile to other secret locations, blunting the impact of the American assault. The Trump administration reacted fiercely to the leaked report, with the president and his team vehemently disputing its findings. The White House press secretary dismissed the assessment, stating, "Everyone knows what happens when you drop 14 30,000-pound bombs perfectly on their target." Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, went further, labeling the leak as treasonous. This public clash between the White House and its own intelligence community has created a storm of controversy in Washington, with Democratic lawmakers questioning both the legality and the true effectiveness of the strikes, while the administration postpones classified briefings for Congress on the matter, deepening the political divide. Fresh off brokering the ceasefire, President Trump traveled to a 2-day NATO summit in The Hague, where he received a warm and supportive welcome from alliance leaders. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte publicly praised Trump for his decisive action in Iran, a sentiment the US president quickly amplified by posting a screenshot of Rutte's private congratulatory text message on social media. This public display of unity was a key objective for Trump, who used the summit to reinforce his administration's tough stance on Iran and rally support among European allies. His diplomatic efforts were further bolstered by a call from Russian President Vladimir Putin, who reportedly offered assistance, an offer Trump said he declined. At the summit, Trump successfully pushed a long-standing American demand, securing an agreement from NATO members to significantly increase their defense spending. The alliance committed to a new target of dedicating 5% of each member nation's GDP to defense over the next decade, a substantial increase aimed at strengthening the alliance's collective military might. This achievement was framed by the White House as a major victory for American leadership and a direct result of the president's firm negotiating style. The United Front presented at The Hague stood in stark contrast to the chaos unfolding in the Middle East, offering a picture of Western resolve in the face of escalating regional conflict. The diplomatic maneuvering, however, could not obscure the devastating human toll of the 12-day conflict. In Iran, the health ministry reported that over 600 people had been killed, a figure that included civilians, military commanders, and according to Israeli claims, at least 14 prominent nuclear scientists targeted in the strikes. Israeli attacks on Tehran and the northern Gilan province alone were responsible for at least 16 deaths. In Israel, the final missile salvo from Iran brought the country's death toll to 28, a stark reminder that no side was immune to the violence. The conflict also saw Iran lash out at the US presence in the region, firing 6 missiles at the Al Udeid air base in Qatar. Beyond the immediate casualties, the war had a profound impact on the civilian populations. In Iran, the government cracked down on internal dissent, arresting 700 people accused of being mercenaries of Israel and establishing a new unit to monitor pro-Israel sentiment online. In both countries, families were forced to huddle in bomb shelters, and daily life was suspended by the constant threat of attack. The conflict also triggered a massive humanitarian response, with countries like India working to evacuate thousands of their citizens from both Iran and Israel, navigating closed airspaces and the dangers of a war zone to bring their people to safety. The announcement of the ceasefire sent immediate ripples of relief through the global economy. After weeks of anxiety over a potential full-scale war that could cripple oil supplies, financial markets responded with a surge of optimism. The price of Brent crude oil, a key global benchmark, fell sharply by over 6% as the immediate threat to shipping and production facilities in the Gulf receded. This drop in oil prices provided a welcome reprieve for consumers and industries worldwide. Simultaneously, stock markets from Asia to Europe and North America rallied on the news as investors moved back into riskier assets, betting that the worst of the crisis was over. The economic sigh of relief was palpable. This positive market reaction stood in stark contrast to the severe disruptions experienced during the conflict. The airspace over Iran and surrounding regions had become a no-go zone, forcing airlines to cancel hundreds of flights and reroute many others on longer, more expensive paths. The missile attack on Qatar, a major international travel hub, further compounded the chaos, leading to significant logistical and financial challenges for the aviation industry. The truce allowed for a gradual reopening of those crucial air corridors, promising a return to normalcy for global travel and trade. But the episode highlighted the region's vulnerability to geopolitical shocks and the interconnectedness of the world's economy. Despite the economic optimism, the peace remains profoundly fragile. The core issues that drove Iran and Israel to the brink of war, Iran's nuclear program, its regional influence, and Israel's determination to preempt any existential threat, have not been resolved. They have merely been paused. Both nations continue to view each other with deep suspicion, and their leaders have made it clear that they are prepared to resume hostilities if they feel their security is compromised. The presence of hardliners on both sides who may see the truce as a sign of weakness adds another layer of instability, creating a situation where a single border skirmish or provocative statement could unravel the entire agreement. Looking ahead, the international community faces the daunting task of transforming this fragile ceasefire into a more durable peace. This will require sustained diplomatic engagement, likely involving Qatar, the United States, and other regional powers, to address the underlying sources of conflict. The debate over the effectiveness of the US airstrikes and the true status of Iran's nuclear program will continue to be a major point of contention. For now, an uneasy calm has settled over the Middle East. While the world welcomes the silence of the guns, it does so with the sober understanding that this peace could be shattered at any moment, making the next few weeks and months a critical test of diplomacy and restraint.